Back in 2005, in the town of Judas in eastern Turkey, some shepherds were having their usual day. They let their flock graze and settle down for breakfast when, out of nowhere, one of the sheep leaped off a cliff and died. And then another followed, and another, and another. Can you guess how many animals ended up jumping? A couple dozen? Nope. About 1,500. Yep. Around 1,500 sheep took the plunge one after another. It could have been much worse, though, because that day only 450 of them died. Those were the ones that jumped first. Their bodies acted like cushions for the rest. Let that sink in. We're talking about 450 sheep here. According to estimates, the losses from these deaths went over $100,000, a hefty sum for the region, especially around the mid-2000s. As usual, a gentle reminder to those who forget to hit the like button, please do it now. But why did the sheep go along with it in the first place? Shouldn't instincts have led them away from the cliff's edge as far as possible? Sheep are really social animals, always needing the company of other sheep in their herd. They're wired to follow each other no matter what. This instinct has let shepherds control sheep for centuries, but originally it helped them stay safe from predators. It's what keeps them together in bad weather and such. So Turkish sheep probably didn't realize they were going to die. Most likely, the landscape was such that none of the sheep understood why the ground beneath their hooves suddenly vanished. They were just following each other, unaware of what lay ahead. There was a similar story in Switzerland in 2017. 13 cows broke through their pen, broke up some fences, and then fell off a 164-foot cliff. Looking into what happened, people thought maybe a predator was after the cows, but this explanation doesn't work for the sheep. This all happened right under the noses of the shepherds. No other explanations make sense. It's important to make clear one thing here. Herd animals actually don't just blindly follow one leader because, well, who knows what that leader might be up to. Even in their herds, they're aware of the risks. But when a certain number of members in the group act in sync, others tend to follow suit. As for sheep, well, it seems like something went wrong there. Sure, people have long been aware of how herd behavior works, and it's not just shepherds who use it. Ever seen those old-style slaughterhouses in America? These tall structures with ramps? Animals were supposed to climb up to the 4th floor to get to the kill pits. We're not getting into the ethics of this, just the logistics. Cows and pigs had no trouble, but sheep would huddle together and resist. And then people came up with a brilliant idea: to train goats with bells around their necks. These goats confidently led sheep to the pits, for which they received rewards, and the sheep followed their lead, ignoring even the scent of blood. These goats, known as Judas goats, actually replaced a significant number of workers in production. Without them, sheep wouldn't be processed at all, and people wouldn't get any goods or profits. But all this pales in comparison to the animals we'll talk about next. They really got the short end of the stick when it comes to leaders because, anyway, you'll see for yourself soon. We'll start with orcas. Everybody knows orcas live in pods, which are close-knit family groups with intricate social setups. At the helm of such a family is always the matriarch, the eldest female who teaches other orcas how to live, choose where the pod will move, and so on. Female orcas usually outlive males, sometimes living up to 90 years in their natural habitat, and maybe even longer. I'm not kidding. They gather a lot of vital knowledge over their lifetime. But hey, everyone makes mistakes, and if anything goes wrong with the pod, it's usually because of a wrong call by the matriarch. This is what happens when orcas get trapped in ice. It's a common sight for people in Russia, Canada, Japan. Here's how it goes down. A family of orcas comes near the shore, probably for some hunting action, and then the wind changes, shuffling the ice to block their way. You might say, why not just die? Well, they can, but orcas still need to come up for some air. When ice closes in on all sides, they're stuck without a way out and could end up suffocating. Sometimes, when orcas are lucky, humans come to the rescue. That's what happened in 2013 when Canadians from Hudson Bay area stepped in to save 12 orcas from starving to death. Marine biologists say situations like this might occur because less experienced orca groups just make a wrong move. They swim in the wrong direction because, you guessed it, because the matriarch decided so, and nearly doomed the whole pod. Unlike herd and pack animals, polar bears prefer solitude. But that doesn't make them immune from mistakes, which are usually caused by the mother bears. Unfortunately, it's the bear cubs that suffer the consequences. In 1989, scientists documented an unusual incident where a polar bear's den collapsed due to abnormally warm winter temperatures, rain, or heavy snowfall. As a result, the den's roof simply caved in, killing both the mother bear and her newborn cubs. Sure, the main reason behind this was the sudden change in weather, something the mother bear couldn't control, but back then it was the first known incident of its kind. And since then, there haven't been any reports of similar den destructions, even though the planet hasn't gotten any colder. Researchers also suggested that the mother bear might have been too young and inexperienced, so the den she dug didn't meet safety standards. Actually, bear cubs often drown while swimming because they simply can't keep up. Their mothers chose routes that are too hard and long for the cubs to handle. Sure, the mother bear probably doesn't have much choice, but still, spending so much time in the water with your cubs and not helping them out? Weird. Swans often live in groups, and when food becomes scarce in late autumn and winter, the whole group migrates to a new location. Typically, they head to open, grassy fields near a water source where they can feed on grass. But before they dig in, they need to find a new spot, which usually means one or two birds need to scout around. Once they discover a particularly good spot with plenty of food, water, and such, they settle in. And then other swans notice and join them. It's a simple strategy that doesn't require much effort. Yet, this habit of relying on a couple of their fellow birds without checking the place they settled in put the swan group in quite a tight spot. This story occurred in Slovakia and left the local farmers completely puzzled. At first, a pair of swans appeared there, drawn by large pools of water and lush green sprouts. Soon, more and more birds gathered in the fields, mistaking the poppies for rapeseed. They started feeding on the shoots, leading inevitably to intoxication. Surely you're aware that poppy flowers contain harmful levels of alkaloids, which are toxic to birds' digestive systems. Unable to fly and vulnerable to predators, dozens of swans died. And if that wasn't enough, a group of more than 150 birds also destroyed a significant portion of poppy fields, leaving farmers without their earnings. But just like in the UK, swans in Slovakia are also protected, which meant farmers couldn't just shoo them away from their fields. As a result, nature activists stepped in, relocating some of the birds to a rehab center. Sadly, most of the swans there didn't make it, all because of an inexperienced couple of swans who landed in the wrong place. Alright, swans might not be the brightest bulbs in the box, but what about elephants? Those big fellas are pretty smart, as we've mentioned in our videos plenty of times. Yet, they also suffer because of bad leadership. Back in March 2020, a group of 14 Asian elephants decided to take a hike from their home turf in Pu'er, China. They covered quite a distance, with nobody getting where they were off to or why. In just 40 days, these elephants managed to trash 138 acres of farmland, racking up a damage bill of over $1.1 million. They weren't shy around people either, wrecking stuff, stomping on chicken coops, and even swiping 220 pounds of grain from a local distillery. And they just kept on walking. It's unclear why the group decided to venture out from the reserve, which was being monitored by a dozen drones, but the expert thinks it was because of inexperienced leadership. Bad leadership led the elephants on a long and pointless journey. The most likely explanation is that the elephant leader himself didn't realize he was mistaken and was confident he made the right choice and chose the right path. Moreover, they stumbled upon some good loot along the way. Locals complained that elephants were devouring entire fields of corn and pineapples from trucks. A car salesman mentioned that 6 incoming elephants drank 2 tons of water in his store. Others crushed chicks, stuck trunks through the windows of a nursing home. In short, they were having a blast. This journey marked the furthest migration ever recorded of wild elephants in China. Along the way, elephants caused 412 incidents where things got damaged, and at one point they even brought an entire city to a halt. How did it all end? The authorities stepped in. They set up an emergency committee to ensure the safe return of the elephants home. They built temporary roads specifically for the elephants, set up electric fences, and placed traps in various locations to keep the animals on track. A team of 360 people on 76 vehicles, along with 9 drones, monitored the elephants. After 17 months, the elephants finally made it back to their original sanctuary, traveling a distance of 810 miles. Can you imagine what the elephants said to their leader when they came back to where they started? It's a relief that none of them got hurt. 1,000 birds in Chicago weren't so lucky. They died because they flew in the wrong direction during migration. On October 9th, 2023, 964 birds crashed into the McCormick Place Lakeside Center, a mostly glass building located on the shore of Lake Michigan. Overnight, as many birds died as typically do in a year because, yes, birds occasionally collide with the building without noticing it. However, this time the number of casualties was unprecedented. Before, the record number of birds killed in a single day flying into a convention center was between 200 and 300, but nearly 1,000 is just too much. When scientists tried to figure out why this tragic event happened, they found that several factors came together in a really unlucky way. Overall, one should blame a risky combination of migration season, challenging weather conditions, and the absence of bird-friendly construction practices. On that night, many birds were flying because they'd been waiting for the right wind. Foggy conditions, reduced visibility, and low-hanging clouds caused the birds to fly lower, closer to buildings. Many of the birds that crashed were probably young and on their first migration. They simply didn't have the chance to figure out the right way to do things. To be fair, not all migrating birds have clear leaders that others blindly trust and follow. However, birds typically trail behind those flying ahead, so there's always someone setting the pace. Seems like the birds in Chicago ended up with some seriously poor leaders. It's not just the birds' fault here. People are mostly to blame. These glass panels we love putting on tall buildings confuse the animals, and they don't even realize there's an obstacle ahead. Besides, there's the issue of bright lights. Dimming the lights, especially during peak migration periods, could reduce the number of birds colliding with urban areas. Some cities even have specific laws regulating this. Odd as it may sound, pigeons, unlike all the other animals I've talked about today, have the ability to recognize and depose a not-so-bright leader. Yeah, super smart elephants might follow their leaders for days on end, but pigeons won't. Yes, we're talking about your regular rock pigeons here. They live in flocks, so there's one pigeon in charge who decides where the whole gang flies off to. To understand how things work, researchers broke a certain leader pigeon. By the way, pigeons navigate using an internal sun compass, tracking the sun's position throughout the day. So scientists tricked the leader pigeon into flying in the wrong direction and were surprised to find that the other members of the flock, whose compass was working fine, simply ditched their leader and flew where they needed to go. Seems like elephants and orcas could pick up a thing or two from that. Wow, we're wrapping up already? Since you made it this far, go ahead and hit that like button. See you later.